Come with us now, if you dare, down a rickety staircase into a dank, dark basement. What awaits? The Saturday Night Freak Show.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Saturday Night Freak Show podcast. We're a movie talk show and review podcast that comes your way every Saturday, whether you're ready for it or not, in our quest for total world domination. You can help us out with that by going over to wherever you found us and hitting that like or subscribe button. All of that stuff helps us get found by other like-minded individuals like yourself who are into the same kind of stuff that we are. These are the internet radio superstars.
Michaela.
Holly.
Sean.
And I'm Colin. And tonight we watched a movie that was chosen by...
Colin? What is good? What is good tonight? Somebody already wrote it in, so I don't want to say.
Okay.
I'll save it for the end for me.
All right, what do we watch tonight? How about that?
We watched Conan the Barbarian. Conan?
Conan sounds more fantasy, if that makes sense.
It does.
Conan.
Like He-Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Conan.
Yeah. If I say Conan the Barbarian, it's Conan the Barbarian.
Conan the
not
Barbarian,
Conan
yeah.
the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Conan.
No.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Starring.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Spell it.
Sean just wants to flex.
C-H, okay.
S-C-H-W-A-R-Z-E-N-N-E-G-E-R.
Nope.
No, there's not two N's, there's two G's.
Did I say N-N?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant G.
And you didn't say two G's, you only said one. So sorry, Sean, you don't have that superpower.
Damn.
But when writing it down.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was made in 1982.
Directed by
John Milius.
Who's John Milius?
He was the writer of Dirty Harry and Magnum Force.
Mm-hmm.
He also wrote Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
He apparently did a lot of the rewriting on Jaws, which was uncredited. He also wrote the shooting draft, I think, of The Hunt for Red October, uncredited.
Interesting.
And directed Red Dawn.
Red Dawn, yeah.
Which would be like the other big movie that I know him from.
Okay.
Which also starred William Smith, who plays Conan's dad in this movie as the Russian soldier.
Okay.
There you go.
A Russian commander. So there you go.
Who else wrote this movie, Colin?
Oliver Stone wrote this movie.
That one surprised me when that came up.
Yeah.
Oliver
crazy.
Stone. How did he get involved? Do we know how he got involved? Like, has he just got a thing for
He was
Robert E. Howard stories?
No, actually, it was a producer, Ed Pressman, went to Oliver Stone with the project. They had seen Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Pumping Iron. Has anybody seen this movie?
No.
Yes.
Not for a while.
Long time
You
ago.
saw it,
but
though?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not as interesting as you would think.
But he's like a
I
big
didn't realize it's just
stand-up from it.
whatchamacallit.
It's a bodybuilding.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It's a
vanity
documentary,
thing.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just like, look how strong I am.
Yeah,
y'all.
yeah.
It's a lot of that throughout.
Yeah.
That was like 1975. Ed Pressman went to Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone wrote, apparently, this like gigantic, crazy script on a cocaine bender.
That's about right.
And they
Love
said
it.
that
This is by his own admittance? Like, he's like,
I don't know if he actually said that or
whose book was this in? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, I got to go look that back up again. But they went around for several years trying to get the movie made. And couldn't. I think Ridley Scott was going to direct it at one point. They were
That sounds
talking to
right.
Ridley Scott.
Is that what our ode to blue sex scenes? Like, I know it's Tony Scott and everything, but like
Yeah,
in the Scott family.
Yeah, there is a blue lit sex scene
Yes,
in this
there is.
movie. Yeah. But then they sold it to Dino De Laurentiis, and Dino De Laurentiis hired John Milius, and then that's so then they actually made the movie. They were inspired, I guess, by the Savage Sword of Conan comic books, which were big in the 70s. And so was like Dungeons and Dragons and all the stuff that but I think it was the success of Star Wars as like a big fantasy movie that kind of allowed.
This kind of felt like it. I got that feeling of that big epicness that Star Wars gives you.
Yeah, for sure. Not the. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't necessarily link them because sci-fi and fantasy do have different hearts, but there is a very similar feel. There's a very similar.
I think the score got me there.
The score and the
because the
setting.
score is
Yeah.
great in this movie. As far as
Yeah,
I'm
that's
concerned.
Basil Polidori's.
Very good.
I will say, if this movie didn't have that score, it would be a chore to sit through. That score carries this movie a lot of the way.
Well, there's a lot of scenes in this movie that are like that don't even have any dialogue.
No,
Right.
Right, exactly.
So you are
stretches.
counting on the score.
Yeah.
Long
to get you
stretches,
through it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I think he was trying to go for Milius was going for like a Wagnerian opera. You know.
Oh, got that. Yeah.
It's all Vikings and Valkyries and all that stuff. But yeah, this is like I think this is one of the greatest movie scores that like I've ever heard. And it does a lot of heavy lifting. I think
It does. It really
movie.
does.
He did RoboCop also. Basil Polidori's.
Another
Yeah,
classic.
because there was a couple moments in there. I'm like, I hear a little bit of RoboCop, the foreshadowing for RoboCop. But yeah, when was the last time? Because I guess the reason I brought the movie was because a couple weeks ago, I know we're
I was going to say, this is
double-dipping.
your retort to the Beastmaster, and that was a couple weeks ago.
Well, because I was surprised on that show when at the end of we were talking about it, and Conan the Barbarian didn't really come up, and I'm like, so had you all seen it before?
Yeah, but it's been like a decade,
It's been a long time.
It's not something I revisit all the time. It's like I've seen it. I accepted it. I took it in, and then I went about my life. Like,
Yeah. And also just, I don't know, growing up, I watched both Beastmaster and Conan the Barbarian. Again, it's been a long time since I saw it. But in my mind, like, Beastmaster is just so silly. And this is totally the opposite
Like
of silly.
Yeah.
So in my mind, like, I didn't necessarily put them side by side because of that.
Right, exactly.
And I think the Beastmaster catches kids more than Conan does.
Yeah.
That's definitely. And I think that's where it comes from.
Well, this is like a hard R rating too.
Well, yeah.
like,
For sure, yeah.
Whereas Beastmaster is like, it's silly because it's so like neutered in its approach,
Yes.
And he's got animals.
Right, and that's
Right.
well, that's the big thing.
It's like this, we have gratuitous sex, and that we have ferrets. Like, there's a big difference.
Right. A softness to it.
Yeah. I think, I guess I was thinking, it's like when we were talking about it, for some stupid reason, I have gotten this
It's
thing
not
where.
stupid, Colin. Don't do
No,
that to yourself.
it is. Because, when you start deep diving into like the sword and sorcery genre, for reasons that are basically like, I like one of them. But there's all these other ones that come out.
Well,
It's
yeah.
like there's clearly like some appeal here that they were cranking out copies of Conan the Barbarian, like Beastmaster and all this stuff, and it's like, what the hell is the sword and sorcery genre?
What is the pull? What
Yeah,
kind of brings you in?
yeah, and I was just wondering where it came from and all that. And it turns out it comes from Conan the Barbarian, because we're thinking like, well, it's got to be the Hobbits or something or Lord of the Rings, but Conan predates them.
Yeah, he came
No.
out in the 20s.
Conan the books predates Lord of the Rings books.
Yeah,
The stories do, right?
When did they come out?
He
20s?
created it was the 32.
32.
1932 was Conan the Barbarian, and I believe the Hobbits were like either
I'm gonna look, 'cause I'm suspect
47 or
of
something
that.
like that. Or the Hobbit, and then the Lord of the Rings stories. So it turns out, in my research, I find out that sword and sorcery is a term that was used to describe the fiction of Robert E. Howard, and specifically
Because wasn't there a journalist who's like, how do we describe these things that are made from him? And they came up with it in a letter to some other person he was talking to.
Yeah, a
Okay,
couple of
right.
writers.
Yeah. Talking to each other about the stories that Robert E. Howard did, and they had to find a way to describe it.
Yeah, how do you describe this weird type of fiction that he's doing, which is taking like historical fiction and horror and magic and swashbuckling and and swordplay and all that. And I think they were saying that the big difference between like high fantasy, of J.R.R. Tolkien and like the Robert E. Howard stuff is the scale is smaller and more personal.
Yes.
Where it's not like, someone's trying to take over the world.
Right, there will not be a
Right.
battle of 5 armies
Yeah,
in,
it's just
in
this
Conan. Yeah.
one weird snake cult.
Yeah.
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 Of the many weird
but to
snake
be fair,
cults.
in this movie, this snake cult keeps going around and like taking over cities.
It's true.
So-
and erecting like pyres
Very
and
true.
pillars and shit.
Yeah,
Very
did
true.
I don't know if I misheard, but I got the impression toward the end that Thulsa Doom, our main antagonist, was basically telling his followers to go out and like, you're going to go and like burn down the, so it is kind of a doomsday cult that he's got going on there.
Indeed.
Thulsa Doom is played by James Earl Jones in this movie.
And with great hair.
Yeah.
I'll say the props in this movie look amazing, except the wigs.
Yeah.
Everything looks, and they stand out so much more because everything else looks so good. And the wigs, and everybody, they're bad.
Except for who's his Thulsa Doom's right-hand man.
He's got two.
The Lemmy, the guy with the mustache and hair. That's real hair. Like, that's him.
Yeah.
Like, because I still see dudes with that.
Well, I think the other dude is
still bad.
No, it's not good.
Big, like, bodybuilder dudes. Well, one was a bodybuilder who was a friend of Schwarzenegger. The other one was Ben Davidson, right? He was the Oakland Raiders guy. But yeah, they have that 80s. Is it feathered hair?
Yeah.
That rock star
with
hair.
bangs.
Hair,
they all have bangs.
Bad bangs.
Bad bangs.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Colin, did you ever rock that look? Did you ever have bangs?
I tried. No, I don't think I ever had the bang. I got to dig up some pictures.
Yeah. I've seen some old ones, you in a leather jacket and some longer hair in the back.
Yeah. I was an idiot. I rocked the mullet when I should have been rocking that. That was when I had, more hair. It was glorious.
That's when we all had more hair.
Glorious days, yeah. Okay, so Conan the Barbarian is the tale of... so this is like a biopic, right? Or biopic? How do you say that? Biopic? A biopic of this character from like his childhood all the way through to like
with a short epilogue at the end that says future tales will be told.
yeah
he will be king,
which we're still waiting for.
What was there was a sequel, right?
Yeah,
it was
Conan the Destroyer, right?
The Destroyer, right?
Yeah.
So the Conqueror would be the third one where he's king.
It turns out so here's some trivia for you. They did actually write a script for Conan the Conqueror.
Okay.
But since Schwarzenegger and those guys didn't ever do it, it was reworked in the 90s into a movie called Call the Conqueror, starring Kevin Sorbo.
That sounds terrible.
Oh, no.
Jesus.
I was actually thinking,
that guy's insane now.
Is he?
Well, I mean, he's probably always been insane.
He's publicly insane now.
Right, yes.
This is Hercules, the legendary journeys.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, because Call the Conqueror came out like in the 90s when fantasy was like Dragonheart and stuff like that they were doing, right?
Dragonheart.
Oh, yeah. Fantasy's been around forever. That was the other thing that I found out. They're still making them. Well, actually, I could say that maybe the last thing that they did before Game of Thrones or during Game of Thrones was like Conan the Barbarian with
remake.
Jason Momoa.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, it was bad.
I really wanted to like it, and it just kept disappointing me.
No, dude, like
is it follow?
Well,
like
that was the same year as Immortals, which was that like 2009 to 2011. It was like, okay, 3D is hot right now, so let's do fantasy movies and 3D. Yeah, so
Clash of the Titans,
really Immortals, and then Wrath of the Titans.
And I suppose 300 might have some play for the reason why those were created.
Yeah.
But
Jason Momoa is a good choice, though.
Yeah,
I was going to say
it's a great casting choice.
Perfect. I wouldn't go with.
Ron Perlman's in it too, and Stephen Lang is in it, and Rose McGowan.
Yeah,
bad.
Yeah, I mean,
she's real
I
bad.
remember seeing like photos from the when they were making that movie, and I'm like, I think you got your perfect Conan because he looks like a Frank Frazetta.
He does,
painting.
Especially because he doesn't have a beard in that movie. I don't know if listeners, if you're not familiar with what he looks like without a beard, like. Yeah, he looks like a different person without a beard.
There was a sequel to this movie, Conan the Destroyer, which came in '84, and then there was a cartoon. Because they all got to have a cartoon. That was called Conan the Adventurer. Then there was a TV show.
Less blood and boobs, I'm guessing?
Yes. Okay. Because you're appealing to the audience. Right. I think the second one was PG, right? So they were like, okay, the primary audience for this is teenage boys, and they can't go see Conan the Barbarian because it's rated R. So we'll give them the
But
PG
the reason teenage boys want to see it is because of the rated R version.
Thank you. Yes, I've always maintained this, and Hollywood doesn't ever listen to me.
No.
Also, the ratings are not a law, people. It's not a law. It's a suggestion. You don't have to follow it.
But anyway, there was John Milius and Arnold Schwarzenegger were working on King Conan: Cross of Iron. I think it was called. Milius had been working on this script.
Not a Circle of Iron, huh?
Not a Circle of Iron.
Thank God.
And I could be wrong. Maybe it was. No, okay. So, and then it became The Legend of Conan and all this stuff. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger went and got elected governor of California, and it kind of shit the whole...
Wait, they were going to do the third one that recently?
prior to him becoming.
Yeah, but him being governor was within the past like 15 years.
Yeah. Well, it's King Conan. He was supposed to be like, 60,
but that's
70 years
way
old.
late to do a third one, is what I'm
I know,
saying.
but now's
That's
the time to
way
bring
later.
back all these-
It's
I don't know.
decades later.
And then, because that's why I'm like, now that they made a remake, is your brand off? Like, people think it's got Jason Momoa in it, or it's a reboot?
I don't think anyone remembers that
No,
movie.
I was just saying you could probably keep going and no one's going to remember that.
Yeah. They're still doing Indiana Jones movies. You can bring back...
Against better
okay.
judgment,
Doesn't mean
yes,
they
they
should,
are.
yeah.
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
No.
Well, unfortunately, Milius had a stroke at some point. He's still alive and apparently lost the ability to talk for a while. I don't know if he still has, but there's a documentary on him and all this stuff, but it was kind of sad. Yeah, Schwarzenegger's still talking about it like it still could happen. And I'm like, how old are you now?
No,
Like, what I mean?
no, don't do it, Arnie. Like, we can't. No, because
Unless
they'll have
it's
to
like-
de-age you.
Yeah, unless
and-
it's like Son of Conan or something like that.
But like, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, that's what would
Unless
make
there's
sense.
like that great scene
Yeah.
at the end where he is the old king, but he gets it together for one last great battle.
Yeah, well, it's got to be about him. I guess that's the thing. Like, when you go see
Yeah.
these new Star Wars movies and you know that Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford are in it, you want it to be about them. Not like we're
Right.
handing it off to a new generation.
We don't like-
I don't want to hear that anymore. I'm so tired of the handing
We
it
don't
off
like
to new
handoffs,
generation.
yeah.
No,
Quit
I
doing
don't
it.
like it. I don't like hearing about it. Ugh.
So the movie starts off with the raid of a village.
Always a siege.
Well, there's also this thing that's set up in the
Just like
movie
in Beastmaster.
yeah.
Just like in Beastmaster.
Okay,
I wonder
so
where that got
I think we said in the Beastmaster
We're needling Colin
episode
right now.
that both of those movies were basically in production at the same time, and
Yep.
so they couldn't have stolen from each other, except, of course, the Conan stories had existed since the 30s. Did we mention? I said we mentioned Frank Frazetta as Momoa looked like him.
Right.
But Frazetta is also like a key figure in the development of Conan because he did all these covers for the books in the 60s, and that's when the books became very popular.
Okay.
And then the Savage Sword of Conan comic books, and then Dungeons and Dragons, and then Lord of the Rings
Right.
became like a big thing on college campuses, like '1 bestseller, like in the late '60s, I think. And so then you had Dungeons and Dragons, and then fantasy, Star Wars, and then the '80s cycle of sword and sorcery movies, of which Conan was one of them. So
This is our peak.
I think so.
Think so?
Because, like, looking it up, there was from 1980, right? You had Clash of the Titans.
Are we on a narrow window like the slashers?
Yeah, it's 80 to about 85. Because in 85, you've got that's when. No, actually, I'd say 87 because Masters of the Universe.
Hell yeah.
88 is Willow. But those are like the only movies, out that year. Where if you look at like 82, 83. Or 81, 82, 83, there's like a ton of
This is where they're all
sword
coming
and
from?
sorcery
Is this where
movies.
the Hercules and all that shit came?
83.
There you go. Okay.
And I mean, come on, they're trying to cast Schwarzenegger's, the co-star of Pumping Iron. They're
right,
trying
the
to,
one that he got in his head. Now he's in this movie.
Yeah.
Just like it. Ooh, they're
we did
competing.
an episode on Hercules.
Yeah.
You should go back and listen to.
Did we do Hercules or Hercules in? No, we didn't do Hercules in New York.
No,
we did
no.
Hercules.
No, we did the Lou Ferrigno
Right.
Hercules.
Yeah,
The first one.
Hercules in New York is Schwarzenegger.
That's Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
Wow.
What
So
was
he's played
I
Hercules
forgot
too.
we did that movie.
Yeah.
I know.
The one where
I
he
do.
punches the bear into space.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god, I forgot about that.
And the whole thing looked like a porn parody because it was so cheap. Like,
Yes.
so cheap.
Oh, that
From the
was
director of
funny.
Star Crash.
Yep.
Which we also did.
Ah, right.
Yep. That was a Summer of Canaan episode.
It was. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this feels like forever ago.
And there was a sequel which we haven't covered yet.
No, I haven't watched it yet, so it's not on my
Okay,
list.
all right.
I don't know if it's any good or not.
Give it a year.
Okay, so there's a siege.
There's a siege.
Yes, it's a siege.
Right. So there's a setup of like the riddle of steel. Is this like a big deal in the movie or not? The father's a blacksmith and he makes this sword.
They
and-
I feel like they're trying to make it a big deal, but honestly, I didn't follow it at all.
I like the story. Like, I thought it was a cool little mythology. The gods had they invented steel. It was one of their secrets, one of the secrets of the gods. And man stole it from him, and they got into a war about it.
No, the gods lost it on the battlefield.
Right, they
man
left
has
it,
the
yes.
secret of steel.
And they ignored it, and they left it, and now man has the secret of
Yeah.
steel. Yes.
But I keep hearing people like misinterpreting that. Like, what's the riddle of steel? It's like, man you can't trust, and woman you can't trust, and you can't trust
Steel,
beast, but
you
this
can trust.
you can trust. And I'm like, no, that's not it. Thulsa Doom supplies the answer to the riddle of steel later on.
He does.
All right, but who's Thulsa Doom?
Thulsa Doom is the head of the snake cult.
who kills Conan's parents.
Yes.
In the opening scene.
Yes, in a very
barbaric way.
Well, in a very barbaric way, but also it's kind of beautiful, like the way they pulled off. I think
it's effective. I would say. I don't know. I'd say beautiful.
I was like, beautiful is extreme.
I mean, there's a beauty to it. I think, but because of the score, because of the way it's shot, it's very slow, and there's a build up to it. This movie does take its time with its stuff, which I do appreciate. Like.
I don't appreciate 2 hours and 9 minutes.
It's like I appreciate it to an extent.
That is a long
like there
movie.
is some specific camera angles and stuff that I appreciate, that they really take a moment to show what's happening. But they could have shaved a lot off of this movie.
Sometimes it feels like things happen in slow motion. Almost, they move so slow. Like,
I mean, it does. But
it's diminishing returns when you keep doing it, though. You know what I'm saying?
It's like. The way that I interpreted it, the pace of it, right? It's like we're going to linger and we're going to hear that, soaring score. Mm-hmm. It is kind of, and I don't know, again, audiences of the 1980s, are they more accustomed to, just the idea of, because nobody's going to the opera, right? But the idea of like big orchestral moments.
Yes.
In films, they're trying to slow it down and give it a gravity.
Yes.
I think that's what they're doing. It's like if we slow it and linger, it's like this is significant, Right.
But not every scene has significance, though.
But to Conan, it does.
No, that's what they're trying to tell you. They're trying to tell you every scene is significant, and when you're telling me everyone is significant, then they're all kind of on the same. They're not. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to save it for when you really need to hit it heavy, and they just use it all the time.
Yeah.
So you said the wheel. He's shipped off. He becomes enslaved, and they put him to work on this wheel where he forges this physique.
Yes, where because everyone else apparently dies away as they're pushing the wheel. And he ends up pushing it by himself.
We never do establish what they're pushing that fucking wheel for.
No,
and that drives me up the goddamn wall.
Somewhere there's an island with Matthew Fox that just keeps disappearing and reappearing and disappearing and reappearing.
It looks like they're like. They might be grinding something down.
Grinding the bones of their enemies.
They might be. I was like, what is happening?
Maybe it is all just that. It does nothing. It's just for significance. Like when we beat you and you die, we're going to grind your bones under this. You have nothing that says it's something else. So
to me, it kind of felt like I was like, oh God, is this going to be a circle of iron thing where there's some philosophical lesson in pushing this thing for fucking forever?
Or they're just grinding wheat to make bread, and it's as simple and dumb as that. Like it could be anything.
I have a scenario, but I'll save it for later. But I think it is symbolic of a period in a person's life where you're walking in circles.
I get the symbolism, but why is he fucking doing it?
In the world of the movie, why is he doing it?
Yeah, I think it is
because he's a slave.
Yeah,
right. But like your slaves are supposed to be of use. So like, what are they getting out of him doing this?
Yeah, he's a slave, not a prisoner. A prisoner is someone you keep like locked away for no purpose.
Yeah.
This is a slave. A slave is supposed to do some sort of work for you. So what is?
And he's getting ripped doing this manual labor. Like, why would you have it? Why would you?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Why would you hunt someone you're keeping captive to get ripped?
Clearly, they're feeding him well. He would need a lot of protein to build that kind of muscle.
But I didn't know if that was intentional on their part or not, because going into the weeds, just watching it, they bring like a bunch of captives originally to the wheel at the beginning, and then as time goes on, we see he's the only one left. Yeah. And so I got the impression that like he was the only one who survived.
Oh yeah,
well, I got that too.
So that's why he's pushing a wheel that should be pushed by like 12 people all by himself, and that's why it becomes this like. Big dude.
I get that, but still don't understand why.
Yeah, it's grain.
Still,
they enslave people.
They're in a desert. There's no grain. There's no farmland.
That's how they're making their money.
Whatever. Right.
Well, then we just go back to the grinding the bones of their enemies.
Yeah, there you go.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. Then he becomes a pit fighter.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Because you can't have a sword and sandal movie without a gladiator match.
Right.
I don't think you can. Yeah, you have to have that. Yeah. So his owner like ends up taking him to this. It's a pit fight where he learns the art of combat in these violent, bloody things.
Barbarian combat,
Christ.
Where at first he just gets bit a lot by the sharp-toothed guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. And he's stabbing and poking dudes, and then he gets trained by sword masters, and he learns philosophy which I
and
thought was
poetry.
great. I know. While he's in a cage, and they bring like this lady in for him.
See, what's the benefit in making your slave well-rounded? Like this, it seems like they're setting him up to have a great life without them and just like set him free. Like
I don't know. I think they're kind of. It feels like they're kind of building him up to have like we have a Conan. He will protect us and serve us. I don't know. Like, what is?
Which, if that's what they're doing, then the movie needs to tell us that.
Yeah, I mean,
know?
they don't. Yeah,
Because if you're just keeping him around to be like your pet gladiator, like you don't want him to be smart.
Yeah, you don't want him to be educated and well-rounded. You want to keep him under your thumb.
That's true. I think you should be doing that if you want to keep this person under your thumb. But I think this is his reward for winning all these matches, because like as he progresses, it's like, well, what are you going to do with this guy? Keeping him in a cage. So we'll
He's
give
like
him
Hulk
something
in
to read,
Ragnarok.
Basically to keep him busy while we're not putting him in the It's
he's like Hulk in Ragnarok. He won so many fights that eventually he's just like looked upon as like a deity in whatever planet they're on with Jeff Goldblum. Where's Jeff Goldblum in this movie?
Right. It's the redheaded guy with the beard who eventually sets Conan free and off on his adventures.
Right.
He quickly, because the first thing that you need on an adventure is
A sidekick.
Right, and a sword, and then a sidekick,
Right.
and then a best gal pal.
Yeah.
And then a wizard later.
I was kind of bummed he didn't have an animal companion.
I mean, wait for the sequel.
Right?
Well, it's because,
Now that
Like,
we think
why
about
doesn't
it,
he have like a wolf or a lion
it's
or
because
like
we just watched Beastmaster, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
But like, but even Jonah Hex had a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels like if you, especially,
Can you imagine Arnold holding up the ferrets going, "What the hell are you?"
yeah,
And then setting them.
well,
because
you
he
could
punches camels in this movie.
he could have even like had like an eagle or something like that would eat a snake, and you got some nice symbolism there. But no, we'll
instead
just
he-
blow right past that.
Instead,
Right, like-
he bites a buzzard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He does.
Oh,
That's
so
the
awesome.
barbarian. That's
yeah,
great.
because it's like, how do you? He's
I think he
fighting
snapped his
even
neck.
with his teeth, like
That's why he can't have a pet, because he's a barbarian.
Right.
yeah.
It's just like, well, if we run out of food, I'm going to have to eat my pet. And I think
But
he knows
that,
that.
like, wouldn't that be the ultimate flex to be like, I'm gigantic and ripped. I have a band of thieves, and even animals bend to my will. I understand that's a Beastmaster thing, but like to be the most well-rounded, like I'm a deity. Like you got to have
It's
animals.
true,
bend
but
to
he
your
does
will.
assert his dominance by killing a pack of dogs and biting a buzzard and punching a camel.
Yeah.
He's trying to get that sidekick. They just won't join up with him.
He has dominance over the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
What'd you think? So now that kind of brought up the idea that there's a lot of that would be. I thought like an animal companion, not a dog, obviously, but like would be some kind of magical thing. This movie and its relationship to magic. I mean, as far as like you're going into a sword and sorcery movie, and I think this is where the newer, I think both Conan the Destroyer and the remake and basically every other sword and sorcery movie err on the side of, well, we got to have magical shit happening like all the time through your movie, and this one is like really underplaying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what was the first time that really
The
comes up when
witch.
he has when he what's the god's name? His god?
His god is Crom.
Crom, right,
Yeah.
right. When he fucks Crom, that's I thought when she freaks out and then leaves, like kind of like Tinkerbell leaving a little bit.
he has,
But
like-
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
It's like weird oracle sex.
Yeah, it is. It's weird oracle sex, but
Yeah.
it's cool. Like I like how it ended. And she flies off laughing.
I've seen
She's like a forest sprite or something.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think they did not educate him very well, because this lady could not broadcast more that she is a witch living in
Right?
the
Right, nobody said on the side, it's
isolation.
like, all right, you don't have to fuck everything. Like I know you're a barbarian.
If you
it's
see
part of your
if you see a
culture.
sexy lady, but she's got dead shit hanging all over the outside of her
She's
house,
in the-
keep moving.
Yeah, and she's in the middle of the desert. And
Yeah.
There's nobody else around.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
probably a witch.
Right.
They
Probably a
didn't
witch.
teach him basic stranger danger, so I guess he wasn't that
clearly.
well educated.
No.
Yeah,
They're just like, well, he'll figure it out.
that was the scene. Like when I saw this first, I saw it on TV, and so of course it's the first sex scene in the movie. Well, no, it's the second, but they cut the whole scene out.
I assumed, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so there's really no information
Just on sound
here.
alone.
Yeah. So I was like watching it this time going like, so why is this scene in the movie? And the only thing that it does is she gives him a direction on where to go to find Thulsa Doom. Because
Right.
otherwise, how's he
in
going to
the
do it?
middle of the sex, which is
Yeah.
not the
That
best
was
time
weird.
to convey information of that import,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I've never had to give directions to a wizard in the middle of sex, so I don't know.
I know, because then you figure the sex must not be that good. But we know it is because she says the price for this
She's giving
knowledge-
up information,
Yeah,
so it
demands
must
a
be
price. You're going to fuck me, so
Right.
I'll tell you where to go. I think he was actually saying, like, when he said Crom, she wasn't Crom. That's like Jesus.
Ah,
You know.
gotcha. It's like Crom Christ.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. I understand that. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God. Oh,
right.
Crom.
Oh, Crom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He meets Subutai, the thief, they hit it off because Subutai mocks his allegiance to Crom in a scene I thought was kind of funny.
It's very funny.
It's very funny. They're discussing gods and who they worship.
It's
and
very like my dad's cooler than your dad.
right.
Very much so.
And they come to a conclusion where what's his name?
The Four
Sonny Bono?
Winds.
Sonny Bono.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Well, he talks about he prays the four winds and everything, and they are above Crom. Crom lives underneath his gods.
Yeah,
and
he's
so
like, my
Schwarzenegger
god
gives
is
him
the
a look.
sky.
Right, the everlasting sky, and yours lives below that. And he's like,
He just like pouts.
touche, son of a bitch.
Yep, your reasoning.
I say good day.
Yeah, I can't do anything about that.
Yep.
Trapped.
So basically, they could have cut the whole scene with the witch and just been like, he found this dude, he sets him free, and the dude happens to have information.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
the
they
only
could have
other
wrapped
thing
that up,
that it
like-
does.
And deprive us of that scene.
Sure.
Well, yeah, because you need your crazy naked witch scene in a movie.
Obviously.
Usually it's just a side quest, though. Usually it's not information for the main quest, you know?
Yeah.
But I think you're right, and the TV editors agreed with you. They end up wandering around and having some travels, which takes them to some kingdoms that we get to see. This is where the production design comes in, because this is like CG, and I'm like, where in the hell are they shooting these?
I was going to say, did they film parts of Game of Thrones in these locations? Because they looked very Game of Thrones.
I know it was Spain, Almerida, Spain,
Tunisia?
something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that there's some like miniature or mat work going on there, hanging
Has to
miniatures
be.
or something
Somewhere,
like that. But man,
yeah.
it looks pretty good.
It does
Yeah.
look good.
Yeah.
It looks
This
real
movie
good.
looks expensive.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's the other thing, too. Of all the sword and sorcery movies that I have watched, I think that this, prior to Lord of the Rings, is probably like, well, that Dragonheart's expensive, obviously, but this one looks like they spent it all on the shit they put in front of the camera,
Right.
physically.
You see it all on the screen for sure. Like, I think it, like, as far as like its props and like the costume work and all that stuff, this is probably aged the best of any of the like the
Yeah.
sword and sorcery. Because like
Probably.
Beastmaster, like we were talking about, they look like dominatrixes and like you know like shit in that movie. This movie,
There were
they
choices
look-
made
yeah,
in that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
whereas
sure.
this, it all looks very believable.
Yeah.
You know?
Natural.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
All right,
once-
so we're
yeah.
going to have to give a shout out to the
Less
guy.
studs.
His name is Ron Cobb. He also did production design on Alien and stuff like
Nice.
that. But
Well done, Ron.
yeah, and he's the Black Lotus dealer at the market, the one that gives him the drug that gets him all fucked up, so they punch the camel. But it has like, yeah, because I mean, I guess we're saying like these things draw from like Viking sagas or something
Yeah.
like that, right? But
Yeah.
there's like this mix of, I mean, Middle Eastern,
Yeah.
I don't want to say Japanese. Well, I mean, I guess Japanese influence, and then there's like the like Genghis Khan and stuff
Yes.
like that. and
Yeah.
Russian.
Yes.
They're
you
very
know.
much combining like Viking and Gladiator and Genghis Khan, like all the whole shebang.
Yeah,
You
but I
can't
think,
really tell.
But is that what gives it like a little more like an anchor and believability versus
Yeah, I
like
think
guys
so.
who, you know, I mean, what would you
Leather
have-
daddies.
Yeah, 'cause like Road Warrior, you know,
yeah,
gear or whatever.
Yeah.
It makes more sense, yeah, for sure.
It just because it looks vaguely familiar, but it's
You
like
can't
it's
place
slightly
it.
off. Yeah, so
you can't place it. It's like, okay, I know this.
Well, and like the way they were talking about, like, oh, it's this standard and stuff like that. That's like something we can identify with
Yeah.
because like house seals and sigils and standards have like existed since forever. So
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how he's going to track down Thulsa Doom is because, of course, they have this. It's a Sean's doing it now.
the
You got to
hand,
say
the
the
snake
line.
hand gesture. Yeah,
What does it say? You know,
Two
the snakes.
snakes.
Two snakes. Two snakes.
facing each other, but they're one.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna.
Yeah. So they end up meeting the Valeria. Valeria is another
Is
thief
that her actual name?
in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Valeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
Sounds
say
a lot
Michaela.
like something George R. R. Martin wrote.
There we go. And that's the
There's
list.
literally a whole region called Valeria
Is there?
in Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Valerian Steel.
Oh, Valerian
It's-
Steel. Yeah.
Well, and that's the High Valerian is the language they like
Yeah.
speak, and yep,
yeah.
I got your number, George.
I was actually.
I'm keeping these tallies on a wall in my house.
Well, I mean, the guy's
You're
inspired by
are you red
fantasy.
yarning that shit?
Yeah, hell yeah, I am.
I looked. Actually, I found a list of like George R. R. Martin's top 10 best fantasy films. While looking this up, Conan the Barbarian's not on it, but Dragon Slayer is.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Was
that might be.
Beastmaster on there?
No.
Oh, yeah, because he can't own up to it.
I think we know what's to the west of Westeros.
Yeah.
It's all these movies.
Yeah.
I have a feeling.
For sure.
I think that's what's there.
Yeah.
So it should be just her going off to the west and then ending up in these movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arya? Yeah.
Colin, if he's so inspired by these, then he should have finished those damn books already, because all the material's there already. He just got to rearrange it a little bit.
I'm just saying, in Conan the Destroyer, there might be a scene in which a young woman has to go into a fiery place, and she, of course, is not burned by the fire. In order
Yeah,
Damn it.
Okay, so
The fucking bar right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, Valeria is played by Sandal Bergman. She was in I think she's a professional dancer.
Yeah,
and there's scenes in this where I'm like, okay, she moves like someone who knows how to be like a professional dancer.
Right, dancer, and I think she had exercise career earlier on as well.
Prior to this,
I think. Oh yeah, way early on.
Aerobics.
Aerobics. That's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
because she was in. I think they saw her in like All That Jazz or Chorus Line. No, All That Jazz. Chorus Line on
she's
Broadway.
Perfect.
She is not.
Really?
No,
that seems like the perfect movie for her because
She in Xanadu?
No, she was typecast after this. So basically, she was the bad guy in Red Sonja. She was in a movie called She, which is basically a prehistoric, and
Was she in Quest for Fire?
No, but she was
too the Temptress,
and she was also in a movie that we covered on this show because you'll remember, of course, Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Oh wow,
that
tracks.
A couple of Silk Stockings episodes.
Yeah,
there with the series Body of Influence.
Yep. But so the thieves go and they rob a jewel, the Eye of the Serpent, from one of these temples, right?
With a giant snake.
How'd that hold up? I'm curious.
It looked pretty good, I thought.
It looked pretty
I was
good.
actually, like, when he, like, cut the head off, I was really curious how they did that, actually.
Yeah, because they cut the head off and there's guts in it.
Yeah, and it looked solid. Yeah.
And it kept moving.
Yeah,
Like, that
it's
was
a
pretty
good
solid.
snake.
Yeah.
So, like,
It's a
there's
solid snake.
part of it's definitely being puppeteered to move, but then the part he cut must have been just like a big pillow filled with like
they probably
guts.
had
Had to have been,
the mechanics going up to the cut.
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
God, can
At
you
least for
imagine
that
if
one
you hit
they
the
cut
wrong
off.
spot?
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's like you're hitting that spot, or else we got to do.
But
this whole
they
thing.
also shot it at such a way where it's probably may have been like scored to come off. Obviously, when he hits it with the sword.
Yeah.
But it
Swords
looks
are heavy, man. You
squishy.
can't actually, unless you're like an expert.
Well, even Arnie was like, he was swinging it earlier. I'm like, that thing was fucking heavy because it looks like he's having some like heft to get that thing going around.
That was
I like that because that's how a sword should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing that, like, in the Game of Thrones books that they never really, like, touched on in the show is that, Valyrian steel's really light, but all the other steel's regular fucking steel. And, like, they used to talk about in the first book how ripped Ned Stark was because he used a two-handed greatsword on the battlefield. Like, you gotta be fucking strong to use a sword that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it adds to the, this is what part of the appeal of this movie to me is it feels like it takes place in like a real,
Definitely.
kind of like Peter Jackson said when he went to shoot Lord of the Rings, is like, we're going to take our cameras back in time to,
Right.
It's like that's to Middle Earth. This feels like we're going back in time to the Hyborian age. Magic exists, but it's on the fringes of society. It's always mostly evil, except for Mako, who plays a sorcerer later on, who helps them out,
Yes.
and becomes the chronicler of his tale. Valeria and Conan are like
A power couple.
It's a perfect match.
Perfect. Like he met his match.
It's entertaining to watch. I'm into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as they kind of bumble their way through.
I love that they get into shit and get fucked up together and fall asleep. And like he's not perfect. Like I feel like Beastmaster was like trying to be perfect.
He's Jesus.
I mean, basically.
like-
But I like that he's a barbarian. He's allowed to just be like, I'm going to drink this. I'm going to fuck with these people. I'm going to punch camels.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to be a barbarian.
It's interesting because Howard had like a philosophy about like at some point he was saying like he believed that barbarianism, right, is the kind of default state of mankind, and therefore like eventually it's all going to go back.
Well, I think that's why people like these movies. Because it reaches down to that kind of like that base primal thing where you're just like, I fight with swords, I take the women I want, and celebrations and all this.
It's do what you want, take what you want.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, his philosophy wasn't so much that they just did everything because it was more. He thought that barbarians were in some ways more civilized than regular like civilization because in civilization they could insult you politely because they're not afraid that they're going to get cleaved in two. And in the barbarian,
Cleft in twain, Colin.
yeah, it's like you don't insult somebody unless you can defend you.
Right.
So you're more cordial when you're a barbarian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they end up teaming up, and so then they're going to go off and infiltrate they get recruited by
Max von Sydow.
That guy will pop up in the most random places.
It's like, huh?
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
I know.
But it makes sense.
Flash Gordon was before this, right?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah. Right? 80?
Yes.
Yeah. So Max von Sydow graces the movie with a cameo appearance to basically send them on their way and rescue his daughter from the cult of Thulsa Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. And Conan ends up like wandering off on his own to go do this because Valeria and Subutai are like, no, we can have money now. Like,
yeah, he gives them the money up front, so like, let's just take the money and split.
Yeah,
and Conan
just throws jewels at them.
I got a score to settle.
Especially like in this time, like that guy has no way of following up with you. Like, I mean, maybe the best he could do is send some henchmen out to look for you, but like, you could take the money and split and be fine.
Well, I guess he gives them the promise of these are just some jewels, and eventually I will give you more if you bring my daughter back to me.
Yeah.
Enough to make you all kings.
Yeah, they have great, like, that dialogue. I don't know, it's me. Think that the dialogue in this movie is, like, great. Like, all the even throwaway lines about, like, after a while, the gold loses its luster.
Right.
All that matters.
See, but when he said that, I was like, well, you just undermined your own argument then. Because you said, you should do this. I have enough money to make you kings. And then you followed up by being like, but money isn't everything.
But he knows it means
care.
what it means to them. Like, at this point,
like,
they're
you
still
guys
in their
can
lives.
take it.
Like, it means something to you. Have it. But do what I ask
To me,
you.
I
Because
just
the only
want
thing
my
that means to
daughter
me
back.
is my daughter.
Yeah, honestly, the dialogue was better than I remembered.
I agree. I think it's good dialogue. It also, I think, because the movie is so very like silent at times, like their dialogue has more punch because we don't hear them talking often. We get a lot of score.
It has like that. The only way that I can describe it, and it's all Milius, obviously, because watching the second one, which was written by the comic writers who wrote the Savage Sword of Conan comics. Milius has a writing style. It's like hard boiled, maybe. I mean, it's like Frank Miller writes that way in like Sin City. It's all like these big, like, pronouncements and it's very like, I don't know.
When done right, they're cool.
Yeah, and you have James Earl Jones saying it,
right?
Like,
and you get good voices doing it. Like they kept it minimal for Arnold because obviously, but when you have James Earl Jones's voice, like you give him stuff to proclamate and to say to his followers and shit, and it sounds cool.
Yeah, because in the books, obviously Conan is a lot more verbose, and he's like a pirate and a swashbuckler, and he goes around and does a bunch of stuff. But for the movie, I think they were maybe afraid of audience reaction to Arnold's accent. And so they, basically he says like all of 15 words or something. It feels like in this movie.
Yeah.
It's 15 words and then yeah.
You get some of that?
It's the Arnold soundboard.
It really
it is.
Like, especially when he was falling downstairs at one point.
It sounded like a Family Guy sketch.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of does.
I bet you could take the Arnold soundboard and make a whole movie just with the soundboard.
Probably.
Yeah.
Take the toy back to the carpet.
Speaking of toys, did you know that the He-Man toys were sued by the makers of Conan because they contracted with Mattel to make Conan the Barbarian toys, and then they canceled the license.
But used the mold.
And
well, they don't see that. Yeah, I don't know. Then all of a sudden, He-Man shows up, and they're like, "We're suing you," but Mattel won.
Damn.
So there you go. It all comes back to Conan the Barbarian. So Thulsa Doom lives on this mountain, and he has all these. So basically, he's got hippies.
Wait, Mount Doom, maybe?
Mount Doom. Mount Doom. Wait. Oh. Yeah, I looked it up. Thulsa Doom's not in the Conan. He comes from Kull of Atlantis, but they brought the character over. So anyway, he has a bunch of hippies. We get these great vistas. I mean, just from a production standpoint, pre-CGI, you're looking at hundreds, thousands?
Hundreds.
Several hundreds.
Easy hundreds, yeah.
Like, just moving in the background.
Very grand.
Like, yeah.
Very grand,
yes.
yeah.
Like, if we're not getting close-ups of these people, there's just hundreds of people back there.
Yeah.
Like, doing stuff
so it
for
has
the movie.
scale and
like
scopes.
walking up a mountain, just like in a straight line. It's
right,
it's
or
very
even
grand,
the zigzag they were doing before.
Yeah.
It's got a size to it, a scope.
White Hoods is
It's
not a
choice,
great choice, but
It's a great choice.
If you're saying you're not supposed to trust them, they're the bad guys.
I mean, there's other ways to convey that,
They,
like iron crosses and shit. No.
Yeah. He's he's like I guess at the time, 80s was still far enough removed from Charles Manson, but obviously there's a Charles Manson, or Jim
in any
Jones.
sort of cult thing.
Yeah.
There is that.
Well,
sort
cults
of
are timeless, Colin. Those
I was gonna say,
still exist and will always exist.
Yeah, but they're specifically looking at the hippie generation with this, right? I mean, they're all flower
They gotta be. There's hippies in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Leading a march with, it's not a tambourine, but it's a tambourine.
Yeah, but I think that's why it still resonates even today, is because
that's a theme that has carried on.
Yeah.
There's definitely a connection between like the hippie mentality and occult life.
Yeah, look
Very
at
similar.
Midsummer.
Yes, exactly.
And then we just came out.
Exactly.
Conan gets captured, and that's where
He gets captured a lot.
yeah, well, that's where he finds out the riddle of steel, which we're saying for all you folks at home who think that it's this you can trust. It's actually what?
The flesh.
Yeah, it's
The flesh,
stronger.
because, the flesh is what makes the steel
Yeah,
go.
The hand wields the sword.
Yes.
and he
And then the
calls
hand
like
ends up in the soup.
yeah, and he calls like a follower down from on high.
Yeah.
And she drops to her death. That is power.
Which he's not wrong. Which is the other thing about this. Like, if you look at what he's saying, like, he's not wrong. That is power. To just be like, come here, my child, and then have them jump to their death. Like, everything he's saying is true.
He's,
I know. I'm just kind of
he's very
upfront.
Right.
He's very upfront for a cult leader. They're not usually that obvious.
Right, yeah. Not so transparent.
Well, he was talking to somebody that's supposedly going to die, so maybe that's why. And thinking,
very
well,
true.
he's doing it in public.
He's doing
so
the
you're right.
bad guy giving
Yeah.
away his plan thing.
Because why have a secret plan if you can't, like, it's so good you have to share it with people? Like, look how big of
Because
an
that's
evil
how you
genius
undo
I
it.
am.
Like-
I know, but you can't, like, that is their flaw. They can't help it. They have to tell you.
Yeah.
They don't have like a group chat with their podcast friends.
Right, yeah. Yeah, if I didn't have you guys, you know what I'd be doing right now? Oh my God, taking over countries. You have no idea.
I mean, that's
you guys,
the next
you guys keep me sane. Yeah, right?
We keep you grounded.
We can make that jump.
Yeah.
You run your plan by us, and we're like, I don't know about that,
I don't know, Sean. I mean, this sounds similar to the insurrection you tried last year. Didn't work. Maybe
But every year,
Right, every year it's like, I've got a new idea.
Climate
It's
change.
the same idea.
Yeah. Did we say he turns into a snake?
This is okay. I can understand following a cult if you saw this shit, though.
Yeah, if I saw this, I'd be like,
Yeah, if I saw this happen in front of me, I'd be like, okay, at the very least, he has great drugs,
I
right?
was going to say, that would be like, did I take something?
Like, that would be my first thought. My first thought was like, well, if this guy's just giving it away, then who am I to argue, Like,
But there's always strings attached. This one's attached to a snake.
He's thousands of years old, Tulsa Doom, and he can turn into a snake.
I love the transformation.
The transformation was
so
great.
much.
Like we mentioned during the movie, there were not enough in between from
the hands
James Earl
going
Jones.
into the jacket killed me.
I know.
Oh my
like a
God.
turtle going back.
That's exactly what I thought. Like, oh, he's slowly pulling it in. But it's James Earl Jones's face, and you can this transformation starts it starts to elongate. Then we cut to a woman, and then we cut back to mostly a snake at this point. Like, it's just should have been a little bit more, but a great cut.
It's not only a snake; it looks just like the Argonians in Skyrim.
It looks like a puppy snake.
The lizard villagers in Skyrim.
Oh, yeah, because he's wearing a headdress.
Yeah, it looks
Yes,
like
that's
it looks
the-
He's a snake
exactly
man.
funny.
Yeah.
the lizard people in Skyrim.
Yeah, but he ends up. Conan gets crucified. So
He
there's
does.
that religious imagery. I guess he's crucified, and then Valeria brings him back to life with the help of the wizard.
Yes.
And so there's, they have to paint, symbols on his skin in order to keep the demons from.
This felt very Game of Thrones too, when Khal Drogo, when they wrap him up in the thing just like that, and have to do the little ceremony on him, and then he's just comatose. God damn it, George R. R. Martin.
And there are
Valeria's got to fight wind demons.
Well, I think they're coming to take his soul.
They are,
right, because he's basically dead.
We decided these were the we'll say the relatives of the shadow ghosts from Ghost.
Yeah, because these ones are ripped.
Right, these are the ancestors.
These ones have like six packs and shit.
They
So
do.
they're like,
genies. They're like mini genies. They have arms and torsos and everything, but no legs.
Yeah, right. They're little bald genies.
Yeah.
They look like little red genies try and come and steal his soul.
I like the way they're drawn. I think they look really cool and they move really cool.
They do look cool. Yeah.
They're animated. I guess that's what it's like. It's like Disney animation or something like that.
Painted on the cell frames and
but Valeria you know, she's told that there's going to be a high price if you bring him back to life. I can do it.
Sounds
but,
familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
But get you a woman who will fight off wind demons for you, so your soul does not get taken.
Oh, dude, I think that whatever she was telling him there, like, you know, like, I'll fight it. You know, if I was dead and I'd come back, it was the most romantic thing I ever heard in my life.
Right? Like, that's love.
Yeah. I'm like, that's love right there.
That's dedication.
So they end up going to storm the actual Thulsa Doom castle, where there's a big orgy taking place, because I mean that's what you do, where you serve the guests at your orgy split pea soup with the hands in it, because they're cannibals apparently. And that's where the Thulsa Doom turns into a snake and it kind of escapes out the backyard or out the back door.
I love when they're like, he's getting away, and they cut to it, and the snake is doing the slowest slither. And I'm like, well, guys, don't worry. He's not going to get far. Just look for the giant snake.
It'll be fine. We'll get him. Don't worry.
Yeah. I still don't know if soup is the best food to serve at orgies.
Right. We also, this is the question that came up during the movie. What is the best food to serve at an orgy?
Yeah.
An odd question. If you have any answers,
I mean, I get crackpot stuff makes sense,
cookbook.
right?
Yeah, I saw it on Facebook just yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you'd found
no,
it at like,
I didn't
Cooking
find
for
it,
orgies
but
and other.
Someone found it at an estate sale of like some woman who apparently was an actress in like the 60s.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
When all the orgies happen.
Yeah.
That's very
So
true.
It was like an orgy cookbook.
Yeah.
Funny.
It was.
when you're cooking for orgies and other fine
Another
events.
large party.
Yeah. Which is, you have my attention. I buy that book.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Yeah.
But
I really
that's probably got the secret, because we still don't know. We're still.
I
going
mean, I
with-
get crackpot stuff is easy, and like,
And plus, it feeds a lot of people.
Yeah,
which is what
exactly.
that's what you need.
Well,
like,
I started thinking about it, I was like, I bet if you gave all of your guests like mugs to have the soup in, so you just like need to drink it with your hand. That might be practical.
That might
'cause
be
then
better.
Then you're not using your hands all that much.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
to
You
eat
don't
the
want
soup.
finger
You don't want
food
ribs.
because
Right,
that's
you're not getting-
gross.
so actually, soup
Well,
might
all
be
right,
a good
you-
idea if you're drinking it out of mugs.
if you either don't want ribs or you do want ribs, and I don't know which orgy I want to be in. Like,
I'm just saying,
They're
like,
going
for
for finger
sanitary
foods.
reasons, like, I understand a ladle in a pot makes a lot of
sure,
sense. You
yeah.
know,
Let's
like-
not touch the food.
Yeah,
Drinking it
exactly.
Drinking
Right.
it from, and you don't have to cut anything. You know,
Yeah.
So not a long sub sandwich
your-
where
No,
everybody's
fuck
picking their
no.
piece
you're
off.
only using one hand. You've got your other one free.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Free to do
actually.
whatever you need to do.
See, this is why you
An
listen to the
orgy.
Saturday
Yes.
Night Freak Show, because you didn't think about this enough, and now we're
And
telling
now you're
you
going to
that
be
you
thinking
need
about
to.
it forever.
Yeah.
And like you can set it and forget it with the crock pots, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're grilling out, someone's got to man the grill and make sure that shit's
Is
going.
Ronco sponsoring orgies?
Yeah, set it
Because
and forget it.
I mean, they had to, right? They were there for set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Because you have other things to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There it is.
Boom.
Again, you never thought. Never thought.
We can connect anything to anything.
Until you needed to.
We can 6 degrees anything into a conversation on here.
But I guess the type of soup is also the next question.
Because that soup looked like pea soup, and
Yeah, it
that's
looked like
That's not
gross.
good.
And I was
You
like,
need protein.
Yeah.
You want good
Well, you
looking
got-
food.
you got
and
hands in
all
it.
that thing.
Yeah, the hands.
Yeah.
That's true. The
I feel
hands.
like
the
you
heads.
want like a stew.
Yeah.
Or chili.
Ooh.
Oh, no,
Ooh.
gas. No, the gas.
I was like,
no.
I don't want chili at an orgy.
No.
I was
still
thinking,
think
I was
maybe-
thinking for like stamina, you know, like
sure.
something hearty. But then I was like, oh no, the
Eat before
beans.
you go to the orgy is probably
the best
thing.
idea.
Or no,
Or
no,
there's
you
just-
shouldn't.
No, you
Yeah,
shouldn't,
yeah.
because then
Eat
you're gonna-
after the orgy.
Yeah,
There you go. That's
you're
a
gonna
better
be sluggish
Snack
and
before the
bloated.
orgy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So snakes.
Eat a light
Holly.
snack.
Snakes.
Ew.
Yeah.
Aw.
Snakes are used
Orgies to snakes?
as
Not a good
arrows
segue.
in this movie.
I don't like it.
They're snake arrows.
They're arrows. They're jewelry. They're kind of just everywhere.
Yeah, but that one he actually
Yeah.
turns into
Yeah.
like an arrow and
Which is
shoots it
cool.
into
Yeah.
Valeria.
I don't know. I need
Holly
some
was
help.
not happy.
I need some help from our listeners because I am very specifically remembering something from the 80s where a snake is turned into, and this was an arrow. I feel like it was a spear in what I'm thinking of. I feel like it was the G.I. Joe cartoon movie, but I'm not positive. But I swear I've seen this before. A snake turned into like a spear and used as a weapon.
If you know,
You know.
write to us. We'll tell you how.
If it was the
in a
G.I.
little
Joe
bit.
cartoon movie, confirm that for me because I feel like that's what it was.
Yeah. Valeria gets like about
We have
I don't
more
know,
knowledge
12
on orgy
inches.
foods than we do of snake
Yeah.
arrows.
How much of that snake went into her? They're pulling it out for a very
pulled it
long
out-
time.
He pulled it out the opposite way, though.
poor actress.
Like, he shot her in sideways through the back, and he like, oh, there's a little tip here, and he pulled the whole damn thing out the front of her.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
gross.
And then it coiled back up. Yeah.
It was awful.
That
Yeah.
poor actress had to have a little snake pouch on her
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you just get that pipe that goes
So
around
many people
and
in this movie are just walking around carrying snakes.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
many people.
Well, because it's a snake cult.
I hated it.
As we know from the dialogue, there's snake cults all over, but just another snake
Just
cult.
another
This
snake.
one
That was my
is-
favorite line of the movie. At first, we thought they were just another snake cult, and the casual way he
They're
said that,
the snake cult. Yes.
I love that there's competing snake cults.
Yeah.
I need like a Warriors style like street battle between
Right,
the
it's like, all right,
different snake cults.
There's
Yeah,
just
until
one
there's
too many
one
of you.
Yeah.
We need to
Became the
pare
big-
this down. All right,
And, like-
so the snake tournament is on.
I like to imagine they all like have different types of snakes that they prefer.
Sure.
So there's someone out there that's just like a little garter snake cult, and they're like, guys, come on, you gotta pick a
Right,
better
they're like
snake.
Sweden. They're
Well, yeah,
just- or
Yeah.
right. It's
Switzerland.
got to be the snakes that are native to your area,
Right.
Because yeah, I think there is like J.R.R. Tolkien. Howard has like a map of the whole
Right,
area of
right.
Hyboria or whatever.
So
the
is there
Hyborian
like
age.
a mongoose cult somewhere?
I wonder.
They're the nemesis.
Only-
yeah.
That would be my fucking cult.
Yeah.
Only in
Hate
rad,
snakes.
Holly. Only in rad.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Holly. We should have had eagles or something, because then they could just come down and pick them up
Yeah.
and then eat them. Like that's your nemesis
That's
too.
my
you know.
cult. Yeah.
See, this is the sequel, Holly.
Yeah.
The eagle cult joins forces with the mongoose cult,
Yes.
and they team up to take down the snake
Yes,
cult.
I'm in. 100%.
There you go. So
I like
with
it.
Valeria dead, Conan suffers a horrifying, huge loss that he never recovers from.
He doesn't shed a tear, Colin.
He can't. He's
can't.
a barbarian.
That's right.
His
So-
friend has to cry
shed
for
it
him.
Well,
for
not because he's a
Yeah.
barbarian; he's a Cimmerian. That's why he can't shed a tear. Although how anybody knows this about the Cimmerians who were all wiped out by the Thulsa Doom, I don't know. But Subutai knows. So Subutai cries for him. And then we go into the final battle where they lure all of Thulsa Doom's people, because they do get the princess.
They do. Yep, they go in and capture her.
Successful.
And then there's this big, two stood against many.
They will not remember. Yeah, they'll remember two stood against many.
Yeah.
One. I don't know.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was good.
Speechifying also. Crom, I've never prayed to you before. I don't have the tongue for it. Yeah. And if you don't help, then the hell with you.
Yes.
But they win. They actually do. Oh, I mean, you're surprised? They beat the marauding army with their booby traps and all this stuff.
I don't
Even
think- none of
Mako
them
gets
fall
to
on
help
a spike.
Huh?
Nobody fell on
They
a spike.
fall,
They
like,
fall
into-
through the
like,
spikes,
into
but
the
then nobody
spikes,
ever
but
fell
not
like.
on them. Yeah.
I mean, there's a giant spike that gets mouse trapped into a person.
Well, yeah, but nobody
That's
falls on
true.
like the ones they set. I do like
yeah.
that though.
That was
That
good.
is
Pretty good.
very
Yeah,
cool.
that was
Just
good.
whoosh.
Yeah.
Finally gets the
got a-
mute.
He
the
got a
hammer
lot
dude.
of them just from like standing behind a rock and throwing his axe.
I mean, that's
Yep.
true.
A
That's why he
lot.
had. You see him like
Like a
grabbing
lot.
one and then positioning the other. It's like, all right, that's the best way to grab this. I'm trying to
I know, because I was like,
decapitate
how many
someone.
axes do you have? Because he's throwing a bunch of them and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he still has another one to fight with. But then he ends up, it turns out, big bad guy below Thulsa Doom has Conan's dad's sword. And in the fight, he actually breaks his own father's sword.
Damn.
Yeah. Symbolism, because I think you nailed it. It's like at this point in the movie, he's become a greater warrior
Yeah.
even than his father. And
Because
then
he has also realized that the flesh is stronger than the sword.
there you go.
There you go.
And the mind also, because he figured out all these traps. And then he goes for it. So after he's killed the army, then he goes for the final confrontation with Thulsa Doom.
Well, during that fight with his second in command, he's also visited, which
Yep.
I forgot about, and I thought she's in Valhalla. This is why she's
Yeah.
dressed the way she is.
yeah, like
yeah.
a Valkyrie.
like a Valkyrie. She
Yeah.
shows
Yeah.
up because she's
A
all silver.
sparkly
A
Valkyrie.
very sparkly Valkyrie. It caught me way off
because she
guard.
blinds the dude. She's so
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And because I think that was the moment. Like that dude had the drop on Conan.
Yeah.
And she
blocked it.
intervenes
Yeah, she-
from heaven
yes.
or from Valhalla.
Yeah,
to-
yeah,
yeah.
craziness.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised.
And then the final showdown with Thulsa Doom is he's on top of the mountain talking
Is it
to
a showdown though?
Yeah, I feel like
Is it?
we got our main showdown here, and this is not a big
It was
showdown.
pretty anticlimactic.
I liked it.
There wasn't a fight.
No, well, yeah, because the princess leads him back in there, right? So she's now on Team Conan because Conan's crew saves her from another snake arrow.
Yes.
And then he basically just sneaks up on Thulsa Doom while he's giving one of his speechifying, and
he gives the "I am your father" speech.
yeah, it's James Earl Jones giving an "I am your father" speech.
Did not put that together just now.
Yeah, because he's basically like, "What would you be without me?" And like, "You're my son. I have given you purpose in the world," and all this other stuff. And Conan, for a minute, looks like he's maybe going to get taken in by it, but no, then he chops his fucking head off.
Yeah.
He gets him in the neck. Like,
Yeah.
And every like
then,
chop
like,
is
brutal
like
as
bloody.
fuck.
Like,
Yeah, it's
chops.
brutal.
Yeah.
Like multiple
And
times.
the sound, it's like he's hitting bone in that neck.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. It's not a clean,
pretty
like,
violent.
one and the head comes
Yeah.
off. It's
No.
like, chop, chop, chop. And then he throws the head down the stairs. Yeah, it's a brutal movie.
It is. Well, it is. And that's why I was saying, like, beforehand, like, when his mother is killed, when I said it felt more beautiful, I mean, as comparison to the actual barbarian deaths, like, the way his mother was killed earlier. Because it just shows
slow
him.
motion.
Yeah,
Slow
I was like,
motion.
the-
Effect
Her,
on him.
him
shot-
holding her hand.
The shot
head
where
going
it's
off.
just him, it's just on him holding her hand, and then off camera you see like the shadow of like the you hear the swipe, and then
Yes.
you see the head fall like
And then
in the
she
edge of the
falls
frame.
aside. I like that.
That was pretty cool. I was like that was pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
But
I like
comparatively, I mean, Bulls of Doom gets his head axed
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Because you don't
Yeah.
want to see hers chopped off.
No, his
Yeah.
you want to feel
Yeah,
it
I
because
think
he
by
caused
that
so
time
much
you've
pain.
earned it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Is Conan going to become like the next ruler or whatever?
I think it is unknown.
Well, he throws the sword down. I think that's symbolic in some way of like, it's his father's sword
Yeah,
too,
his mission at that point like is
Yeah.
done.
They burned the whole place down.
Well, yeah,
too,
he's
yeah.
like,
You
because
gotta burn your past.
he doesn't want to. That's a cult. He doesn't want to rule them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he
because
doesn't
the
want to be a
princess
cult
is like
leader.
bowing to him.
Yeah, and then he like holds his hand out to come with
Yeah,
him.
it's like, no, we're equals. You can come
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
me.
so
You
I
know?
don't have to do that anymore.
And we're gonna go back to your father, apparently, and maybe they, have adventures. Who knows? But all we know is that a title screen
we get a-
comes up at
we
the
get-
end.
Conan sitting on his throne, all bearded and everything. I'm like, ooh, that looks like that's a cool look.
He looked
to
very
Arnie.
Viking in that
Yeah.
that frame. Yeah.
But we get the titles at the end. It's like he returned the daughter. He got into many wars and adventures, and
Became a king by his own hand.
which is a story that will be told
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. That is also how Conan the Destroyer ends. So
Yeah,
that
is it?
exact same thing.
Exact same.
Exact same. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, no, I think they have a better line. What was it? It was like, but that story, it's not shall also be told.
Has
It's
yet
like,
to
but
be
that is
told.
another adventure for another time or something like that. But yeah, it's
we'll
the same
never get
shot.
to.
Doing that,
Yeah. And
Jerks.
they all start with before in the time before, and after the oceans drank Atlantis, and there was a time undreamed of, and all that stuff. But yeah, that brings us to the end of Conan the Barbarian because unfortunately King Conan never materialized, but it could.
No.
Yeah.
Always potential.
So we're going to go around the room, tell you what we individually thought of this movie. But before we do that, we're going to read some of your mail. And in order to do that, we're going to have to summon our mailman. And his name is Igor. Bring us the mail.
Masters, the mail. I've got the mail. So many letters. Our followers are rising.
Why, thank you, Igor.
I got nothing.
No,
Yeah.
nothing.
Nothing about snakes. He
No.
looks like a snake. He's turned into a snake.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel
didn't-
we've already
yeah.
gone to
He's
that
wearing
well.
a cod piece or something. He's got
Wow, you went to
horns on his
codpiece.
head,
That's on you.
I mean, it's Igor. Okay.
That means he has
he's-
genitals, though, and I don't want to think
Oh.
about that.
No, he doesn't.
No, he wants.
Has he been working out? All right. So we want to remind people how they can get a hold of us. You can follow along on Facebook,
Facebook.com/Saturday Night Freak Show.
on Twitter.
At Sat Freak Show.
You can get a hold of us by email
SaturdayNightFreakShow@yahoo.com.
or follow along on Instagram at Saturday Night Freak Show. MF Mad, the keeper of the Saturday Night Freak Show
Here
Wall
we
of Fame,
go.
wants us to know that William Smith, Conan's dad, is on the Wall of Fame because he was in Conan the Barbarian. He was in Hell Comes to Frogtown, reunited with Sandal Bergman, and he was also in Maniac Cop, which we also did on this
That's a
show.
good assortment of things.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's variety.
William Smith's been in 300 movies.
Wow.
Good for him.
Shit.
Yeah, he's been around. He was a child actor in The Ghost of Frankenstein. He was in Action USA, Sean, that Vinegar Syndrome title.
What was he in that?
He was remember on the bridge at the end, he was like I can't remember if it was a cop or FBI guy. It's William Smith. He's all over the fucking place.
Okay. Did he have the sunglasses and the
Yes,
stash?
yes,
okay,
he
yes,
did.
I remember
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, about tonight's movie, Conan the Barbarian, Nelson Nascimento writes in and says, Conan, what is best in life? To listen to the Saturday Night Freak Show podcast, see them become the most listened to show in the universe, and hear the lamentation of other podcasters.
I love that.
There you go.
Yeah, I wanted to use that earlier, but he says this is the bar by which all sword and sorcery films are measured, and Arnold in his prime. Looking forward to hearing everyone discuss this one. Owen Johnson says this movie growing up had parallel lines that were similar to Navajo stories. People shape-shifting into animals, spirits that come from a different plane of existence, giant snakes that people worship, James Earl Jones using the snake as an arrow. But I think what made this movie hit home was the landscape. Here on the Navajo Nation, we have a similar land formations that look like the locations they shot at in this movie. And he gives it a 10 out of 10. Well, we determined it was
awesome.
Spain.
Okay.
And the second one, I think, was shot in Mexico, but that's where you're going for that kind of.
That's cool though. Like
That's really cool.
I like hearing how people personally relate to movies in ways that I might not.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
That was also the basis for the Beastmaster book, wasn't it? It was a Navajo story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would love to see like a fantasy that's totally based in like Native American folklore, and
That would be cool.
that would be so great.
I'm sure
Like
it's got to be something.
Yeah.
out
I'm sure there is,
Gotta
but
be.
like I've never seen one, and there should be a big one because I can't think of anything.
Right.
And that would just be so awesome.
be like really fantastical and
yeah,
stuff.
I would love that.
Grant Parrish says, a couple times a year I buy a French bread loaf, a block of cheese, and some miscellaneous fruits and summer sausage. Then I put on Conan the Barbarian and eat with my hands. It feels very primal.
I like that tradition. That's awesome.
I like that, where you can eat with a movie. I like that.
You gotta get pea soup, dude. You gotta add that to the rotation.
Don't ruin it. No, meat and cheese and bread and
I like how he
wine.
started out with like a nice cheese board, and then it turned into
Right,
that.
we're doing
Like,
charcuterie
oh, okay.
with Conan the Barbarian. As long as you drink wine out of a vase, then you'll be fine.
I'm not
I
gonna
think so.
lie, like that's my party. Like invite me.
But with
I
your-
want to come to that
just
party.
With your hands. So I guess you put them on little
I love
crackers and stuff.
charcuterie.
Yeah.
Kryptonian Orphan said, did any of you guys and gals think that Sandal Bergman looked like Rod Stewart, or was that just me?
Oh, wow.
I didn't think it, but I see it.
Damn, you're ruining
Ouch.
Sendall Bergman for me. Don't do that.
He says, anyway, great selection, Colin. I love this movie. Where else can you have Arnold, James Earl Jones, and Max von Sydow? Conan the fucking Barbarian, that's where. And Brad Butcher says, do you know The Riddle of Steel? He says, I love that movie. About Cool as Ice, that was last week's movie that we did. Carson Snar said, you're very brave people to sit through this movie.
Thank you.
You're right.
We deserve medals.
Simon Carter says, we all know Vanilla Ice's crowning achievement was the ninja rap in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Goddamn
Yes.
right.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty timeless.
Yes.
Travis Legler says, the best takeaway I had from this episode was remembering how Matthew Broderick tainted the memory of Inspector Gadget and knowing that others hate him for it.
Yes,
There was a lot of
absolutely.
gadget talk on that.
Gadget talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, French Stewart got brought up. It was a wild ride.
Michael Whitaker wants us to know that, or he says it's guaranteed that the mechanics place in Cool as Ice was someone's personal art project that the location scouts just found.
Right?
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Pat Hetfield says, I have never, ever been interested in seeing this movie, and I'm still not, but your discussion on it was lively and entertaining. Considering the subject matter, this is nothing short of miraculous. Then again, I should know by now not to expect anything less from the internet superstars. I especially found the part where you were discussing your headcanon concerning the movie to be interesting. So keep it up.
Sometimes a movie forces you to make sense of it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes a movie forces you to be like, no, you figure this out.
Yeah,
Like,
we
we're
can-
not doing it.
You came up with one for Cool as Ice. You got to go back and listen to that episode to
listen
find
to it.
out.
That's
I
what
find
it
that comment insanely flattering. That's a great comment.
I'm
Thank
like,
you.
you know what? I don't blame anyone who doesn't want to watch
No,
the movie.
God, no.
If you tell me you don't want to watch it, I'm not going to be mad. I'm like, I get it. I get it.
I think
Like,
it'll be only more interesting if you just hear our version of it and then have that live in your head. Far more entertaining,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, Brent Zemecki says the ending of Cool as Ice should have dropped the zero and got with the hero and ended with the ninja rap scene from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
that would have been
I
a great
mean-
way to connect those movies for synergy.
Right, my next gig in Turtle Show, and he goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, not again!" And then it cuts to black.
Yeah.
That's the end of that movie.
Genius.
Ah,
That would be fantastic.
See, we could be Vanilla Ice's agent too.
Yeah.
ice.
We, you know,
I got an idea.
Yeah.
Hear me out.
and then you get a title card, Catch Vanilla Ice in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2,
Yes.
Secret of the Ooze, and then
Wait,
boom.
did that
you
come
got-
first?
They were the same year.
Oh, they were saying, okay.
Damn, business.
Yeah.
Come on. What are you doing? You're leaving money on the table.
Well, the previous week we watched a movie called I, Madman. Steve Carney says, I'm thankful for Tubi when it comes to movies like I, Madman. I'll take watching the movie for free over paying $84 for the out-of-print Blu-ray on Amazon. Well, it's a good movie. I have never seen it before. It's not worth owning for $84.
No.
No.
God, no.
No.
But he says, I simply love Tibor Takish's other film, The Gate, and even The Gate 2, some more. They're fantastic gateway horror pun intended.
I love that.
Nice.
Ed Snyder, we were saying we didn't know what happened to Jenny Wright after her success in the 90s. Ed Snyder says that Jenny Wright is on the convention circuit.
Is she? All right, I'll keep an eye out for her.
Okay.
About the previous week's episode, which was The Beastmaster, Joshua 876 says one of the best. Oh, he says Saturday Night Freak Show is one of the best movie shows out there. I just listened to the Beastmaster episode, one of my favorite movies from my childhood. Mark Singer was amazing, and what a hunk. Highly recommend the TV show. It ran for 4 seasons and was surprisingly well acted and very good. And the actor playing Dar is excellent and still working today on Days of Our Lives.
Makes sense.
All right.
Days of Our
That
Lives.
tracks.
Yeah.
B. Shaw Foolery says, I listened to that episode again last night, and I think Rip Torn's character and it is just the most unlikely role I've ever thought he'd be in. It's like seeing Pee Wee Herman as a sarcastic biker vampire.
I love him and Buffy. Love it.
He's great.
We've never done that on this show, have we? Buffy the
I've
Vampire
thought
Slayer?
about it, but I didn't
yeah.
know how you would feel about it, Callan.
I mean, it's got vampires in
I mean,
it. It sounds... so,
But it's also a 90s movie, which you don't.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
And it's like PG.
Was it?
It's PG-13. It's
So is Cool as Ice.
basically like if
And did you like Cool as Ice?
No.
That's kind of that's Holly's point. Yeah.
Buffy's like for teen girls, but with vampires.
Yeah, and there's vampire and Rutger Hauer. So Shoot 'Em Up was a movie we watched several weeks ago, probably prior to Beastmaster. I'm
Yes.
not entirely sure now.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Peter Gatt said he believes that Clive Owen's best film, which we didn't mention, was Croupier.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I haven't seen it for a long time.
So there you go. Well, thank you all for writing in. We really, honestly appreciate it.
That was a very full mailbag.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I love
Yes.
it.
It was.
It's my favorite part of the show.
There's an emoji. How nice.
Oh, yeah, we got an emoji. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go around the room and tell you what we thought of Conan the Barbarian, starting with...
Michaela, we'll go in order tonight since it's all messed up and different.
I was just saying when you were like, before we started recording, I was like, God damn it, if I sit in this chair, I'm going to have to go first. And then Holly was like, well, maybe Shauna. And no.
No, Michaela, you will go first. Again, I'm trying to get, like, the people who want to, like, get it out, I feel like you need to get it out.
Well, and I was saying this is my least favorite spot to sit. I went on a whole thing about this spot while you were upstairs.
Did. I should have been a gentleman and traded, but I like this seat.
No, you know
like
what,
this
Holly,
too.
I would have done the same. I would have been like, yeah, I agree. And that's it. Yeah, I would have done the same. I don't begrudge you for that.
Okay.
So I used to play the Conan Exiles PlayStation 4 game, which is really fun. It's
I remember that.
It's an RPG game. The downside to it is it's a very easy game to beat very quickly. That was the only reason I stopped playing it, is because it beat it really quickly. But you start off that game being crucified in the desert, and then Conan comes and cuts you down and saves your life, and all the religions are in it, and you get to pick which religion you want, and there's giant snakes and lions and all sorts. It's a really
Sounds fun.
game. Yeah, and it's violent and then when the sandstorms come around, you have to go hide because they'll kill you if you're out in it. It's really good. They just need to make it like have more playtime than like 10 hours. Like it just, you go through it and you're like, what do I do now? But
Kind of like him in this movie. So,
Yeah, kinda.
what do I do now?
yeah, but this movie moves slower than that game does. So, so I would definitely check that out and definitely play it. I'd seen this before. I'd seen the remake. It's like the production value is insane, and the way it holds up is kind of insane too, especially when you consider you have people turning into snakes. That could look really, really bad, but it's pretty entertaining the way they handle it. I think you definitely got to see it just because it's like, it's an eat your vegetable situation, right? Like, even if
Even
is
if
a
it's
little
not your thing,
slow, I do think you can trim a lot of this movie. I think 2 hours and 9 minutes is... I don't feel like there's 2 hours and 9 minutes of content in this movie. You know, there's a lot of scenes with just like that, like kind of sweeping score and like landscapes and stuff, which like done in moderation and with like a good flow doesn't always feel slow. Like the Lord of the Rings movies have those too, you know, but I feel like they move at a better clip. But I think you kind of like have to see it for like movie education. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it has that important of a role with this subgenre that it's your cinephile job to watch it, so I would definitely recommend it. I love that it's violent. I love that it commits to a hard R. I like those things about it, because like the other side of that spectrum is the Beastmaster, like kind of childish, like, which they both have their place, and you know,
We don't have blood, but we have animals.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, you know, what flavor do I want today?
Right.
And so yeah, I definitely think you should watch it. I think that there's times you could get up and go get your laundry out of the washer and then bring it back to fold it and not miss anything. But definitely watch it. Holly.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. It's a really well done movie. Like I don't know if people automatically think that Conan the Barbarian is a good movie. Like they just have I don't want to say that like a prejudice about like the kind of movie it is, but maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But it's actually like a good movie. Like it's pretty decent. The production value is amazing, and like we were saying, the dialogue is surprisingly good, even though there's not a ton of talking. Like when they do talk, a lot of times it's not cheesy. It's a good dialogue. Yeah, I like this movie a lot. It's my biggest complaint. We've already talked about it. It's very long and it feels long. There's a lot that could be trimmed from it. There's a lot of times that I feel like as long as the scenes are taking, it's not pushing the story forward. So I'm not sure why we're spending so much time on it. But I mean, really, that's my complaint about that is just like, that's the rewatchability. Like it's not one that I'd want to go back and revisit because of that, because I don't want to sit through a movie that doesn't move at a quick clip.
Right. Like for a lot of these, or I think we'll agree, you got to be in the mood for it.
Yeah,
you got to know that you're going to be in there for two. I think tonight I was ready for 2 hours of this.
2.5. Wasn't it 2.5?
I don't know. 2 hours.
2?
2 hours.
Like 2.5. But yeah, that's my biggest complaint is how long it is. Otherwise, I think it's a great movie. I do appreciate that they go for it with the violence, because fucking Conan the Barbarian should be a violent movie.
It's a barbarian in the title. Yeah.
Yeah, it should go for it, and it does, and it didn't disappoint, and it holds up extraordinarily well. Yeah, I dig this movie. I feel like I'm not sure why you haven't seen it if you haven't seen it. Like it's been a while since I'd seen it, but I've seen it several times. So I feel like if you haven't, you should probably check it out. And yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about it other than length. Yeah, it's a solid watch. I wasn't really, I don't know.
Too much length for you.
Yeah, too much length for me, Sean. Yeah.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
My turn.
Oh yeah, because
there was no.
You didn't pass it.
Yeah, there was no pass.
Oh, I know, because I was very distracted by your comment. So.
By the length. Happens. I mean, this is kind of it is the standard of these type of movies. Did this play on TV nowadays? I think that's why we don't. It played on TV like tons back when we were younger and all that stuff, and I think that's why it's more. I feel like it's more known to all of us.
I feel like it did when the remake came out.
I've seen the remake on TV a lot.
This one's been supplanted by the remake.
Yeah, so
I think that's why it's like I don't know that Conan is
right, and I think that's why we're losing it. And probably again, I don't know the specifics of it or how many people still recognize like Conan the Barbarian, but I still think it's the standard of this type of movie. I think. It's a very good movie. Again, the score did a lot for me.
Yeah, it does a lot.
It does, like we said, the score does a lot of heavy lifting, but it's a nice to listen to. I think it accents the movie very well. It did a lot for me in this movie because I do agree. Like you got to be ready for this movie. You got to know you're going in for a 2-hour sort of epic. And it worked for me tonight. This is not my normal type of movie. I won't go back and watch these type of movies often. I do enjoy them when I do get to watch them. This is one of the best. I had fun. I mean, the characters are good. I mean, yeah, it's like Michaela said, for, Eat Your Vegetables. Like, even if you don't like this sort of thing, you got to watch it. It's Conan the Barbarian. It is it. Like that. It's for a lot of people. I don't think it has been supplanted. This is a standard. I recommend it. Very good movie. Colin. I almost called you Conan. Conan.
Hey, but that's all right.
Please wrap up. Yeah, I was going to say. It's Colin's dream come true. Conan, your wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I always held this as the standard bearer for sword and sorcery movies or fantasy movies. I think, until obviously Lord of the Rings
right, but this is a different kind of fantasy than that. Yeah.
Right, because I think this is still the standard bearer for sword and sorcery.
Technically sword and sandal, and like Lord of the Rings would be sword and sorcery?
No, they say that sword and sandal is like your, that's your historical kind of, and like the Hercules movies, from the 60s. You know how many of those?
But that's not historical.
I know, but there's less sorcery, I guess. They're
in mythology?
Because they're talking about like a blend of horror, I guess, which is, I think, what sets sword and sorcery apart from sword and sandal. Because you can, like Clash of the Titans, technically, I guess, is sword and sandal.
Yeah,
even though
that's
there's,
what I'm saying.
you know, there's magic and mythology, gods and, you know, and stuff. But when you're talking about like evil wizards and, you know, and you kind of get into that, I guess, yeah, it's like a...
For me, I would divide them by environment. Like, if it's a deserty fucking thing, then it's sword and sandal. If it's like obviously supposed to be an analog for Europe, then it's sword and sorcery.
Oh, yeah. And then
that's my definition.
You have like the trolls and the orcs and all that stuff. Then you get into like J.R.R. I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien obviously defined a genre of... you know, I think you were saying it's high fantasy, right? Or it's like high fantasy means there's lots of fantastical stuff everywhere. This is like more, to me, it reads as like almost like an alternate history where it's supposed to be like a, you know, like pre-recorded history when magic still existed.
Right. Like our ancestors could have come from this,
right?
Not from Lord of the Rings. Like you could see how we could come from that.
Yeah, yeah. As magic dies out, Thulsa Doom's like the end of his like race or something. Right.
Yeah. He's the last of the people that are going to turn into snakes.
Yeah. I don't know. This is one of my...
his wife in the pit. That's why he's so
yeah. This has always been, I think, one of my favorite movies, like, of all time. And that's why, you know, I went so hard on it. In this one, you know, just researching a bunch of stuff and finding out, you know, about Robert E. Howard. I had known that he, a lot of this is an interesting thing, like, a lot of the Conan stories were written for Weird Tales magazine, which was also, you know, H.P. Lovecraft was a contributor to that. And so there is
the connection. Wasn't he part of the Lovecraft Club or something like that?
They all these authors became like letter writing pals, and they would influence each other's fiction. And so Conan actually takes place now, I think it's accepted within the H.P. Lovecraft universe, and the god of Set, I think, the snake god is it's like that's Lovecraft's the Yig, you know, the great serpent. So, and a lot of especially when you watch Conan the Destroyer, there's a you know, the ancient deity that they're bringing back to life, and that feels very Lovecraftian. So there's a shared thing there. I haven't actually gone back and read any of those stories myself. I recognize that this is an adaptation as seen through John Milius, who I think is, you know, based on the dialogue in this and having watched the other, you know, Conan movie, like right before this, is like, wow.
You see the difference?
You see a difference. It's like he's a more, it feels like he's a more intelligent screenwriter.
More loquacious?
He's able to work in, he works in his allegories like all the way through it. Like, I mean, the movie starts with a forge, and the whole thing is about the forging of a man. Basically, it's like right there from the opening scene, he's doing it. You know, you're watching this kid walk in circles through his, you know, the school age, right? And it's like when you feel that. And then basically it's this liberation from the parents, finding your own way in the world, finding love, and eventually, I think by the end of it, you know, he both breaks his symbolic father's sword and defeats the evil teacher, right? Who's kind of inviting him to go, like, well, you can go this way or that way, and he becomes his own full man at the end of the movie. Which I guess that's what the problem with the sequels is, like, right. Well, now you don't have that. Now you're just sending him off on adventures, but there's tons of books and stuff of Conan going off and getting in adventures but this is like the origin story biopic of Conan the Barbarian. The score, we've said it over and over again, but I mean, I really do think this is one of the greatest movie scores I have ever heard, because and it does carry so much of the movie, but I mean, it is just this like operatic level of this is what the other fantasy films don't really have.
Not like this,
Yeah, and I think it does kind of elevate, you know, everything that you're watching. But yeah, it's a serious, exploration of that subject, and I don't know, somehow, like, I like my fantasy with like little fantasy in it. Maybe that's like a thing that I have going on. It's like I don't buy 100% into when you go, like, you know, that's why I like Game of Thrones. You know, it's like So that's low fantasy, right?
It's
Is
like
that what we're
mostly
saying?
people.
No,
and then a
that's high fantasy.
Shadow demon
Yeah,
comes
but
in.
the whole first season feels like this is like the War of the Roses or something. I mean, it feels like a historical thing between these feuding houses and all this
Right.
soldiers
And White Walkers.
Yeah, that's
but
literally
they're in
that's
background,
the
and you're
opening
gonna have
scene
to
of the
deal with them
series.
eventually. Well, that's what's intriguing about it. But yeah, so it's but I guess that's
High
how I
fantasy.
kind of Game of Thrones lures you into it. It's like we're going to give you this like
Colin.
real
It's
real
high
thing
fantasy.
with drama, and then eventually there's going to be dragons.
Drama,
But by the
then
time we give you the dragons, you will have bought in so much that that you're totally going to buy it. So anyway, I would definitely recommend Conan the Barbarian. I like I said, you talk to people who don't say that it's the like that's the Sword and the Sorcery movie. That's why I think it's like I wanted to bring it tonight and just check it out again and see how it played. So that's Conan the Barbarian. Next week. Wait, so that was a 4.
Four
that was
approved, yeah.
All right, so that's Freak Show approved. All right, there you go.
have to watch it now.
Yep.
So next week we're watching a movie that's chosen by
John, what are we watching next week?
We are going to return to the peak of sci-fi filmmaking. Yes, the year 1995.
Okay.
And we will be watching Species.
All right.
Okay.
Species. All right. So
that was the other thing I wanted to get back to when we were talking about how do we pronounce it. How do you pronounce species?
Species.
Or species.
Oh,
Some people do
Yeah,
species.
that's how I say it. Yeah, species. Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
All
There we go.
right.
We got the difference.
So we're going to be going back and forth on pronunciation. You need a pronunciation key for next week's episode.
Species
on the Saturday Night Freak Show. And until then, ladies and germs, the basement is going dark.